Okay, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. This is the How We Heal panel series discussion on procrastination. Joining us today, we have Nina Littman-Sharp and Sumeet Saini, both psychotherapists, and they come with a really unique background in procrastination and helping and supporting people with procrastination, including their own journeys with it. We were just before we started recording, we were sharing as participants and panelists a little bit of our experience with procrastination, and we have a room of procrastinators with us today. Everybody looking for tools and techniques and tips on how to work through that and get things done. So before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that we are all coming from different areas on the earth. And we all come with different ancestors and land acknowledgements. Right here, we're speaking from Toronto. So I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. And while we do that here, I would invite each of you to just close your eyes and acknowledge the land that you're on, the ancestors that come before you. The InArts Collective acknowledges that we're on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it's now home to many diverse nations, diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge that the work that we do today will help future generations as well. And I give gratitude to all of you for showing up for these conversations to help to improve ourselves and work on ourselves and be the best people that we can be. So without further ado, let's begin by introductions. Nina, would you mind getting started and just, everybody's likely read your bio already, but what brings you to the topic of procrastination, and could you share a little bit about your perspective and your work?
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I consider myself to have been a stellar procrastinator when I was younger. I'm not bad at it now, but I was way better when I was a kid. So lots of experience with the emotional side of it and the sort of crushing weight of walking around with things that you haven't gotten done and don't want to do, and the dread and the all of this, and the fact that it spirals and it gets worse and worse. I'm a social worker, and I spent many years working with people in addictions, and there's lots of procrastination going on there, and I began to specialize with ADHD. Because that's very common in addictions, and particularly in gambling. Sorry, I've got a cat that's just deciding to block the screen. ADHD is one condition where procrastination is just a huge issue. So I've really focused in on that whole piece, and it's very open to practical approaches most of the time. They're useful practical approaches, and I like that. So that's the kind of background I've got on it, and how, we can talk more about how I see it. That's how I got here.
Thank you, Nina. Sumeet, would you mind introducing yourself and what brings you to the topic of procrastination?
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us on this very important topic. My name is Sumeet. I'm a writer, comedian, psychotherapist from Toronto, and specialize in helping millennial and Gen Z men with anxiety and depression, especially by addressing modern existential issues through the lens of spirituality. I believe that our time and attention spans have been hijacked by culture and technology, but by harnessing wisdom, the power of ancient and modern universal principles and practices, I've been able to vastly improve my productivity and creativity. So now I'm teaching men how to do the same thing. I believe there's a lot in our culture that really kind of promotes procrastination, primarily just the endless access we have to pleasures, to distractions. At a push of a button, you can have any food you want, any show, any movie, any game, you know, any substance like drugs, and all these things have really hijacked our brains and our reward circuitry, and that plays a big role in motivation, right? So that's something I'll be touching on, is that it's hard for people when we're so wired for instant gratification. It's hard to engage in activities that require delayed gratification, right? So I'll touch on these things, but that's really the gist of it for me.
Thanks a lot. So let's dive in. Why do we procrastinate, guys? What is this about?
Well,
okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sumeet.
Okay. All right. So for me, I'm gonna say that the causes are physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So physical being, if we're addicted to things, and some people have addictions without even realizing it. So it's kind of like what I was talking about. So if you drink very often, if you smoke marijuana often, if you play video games often, if you watch pornography often, all these things are changing the way your brain is wired. It's wiring your brain for instant gratification. It's like these are things that give you pleasure right away. So why would your brain want to do things where the reward is so much farther in the future, right? Why study for this exam when I can watch this show right now and get instant pleasure, right? And now that we're inundated with, like, from all directions with, like, pleasure and distractions, it's hard for people now to really, because now when you're filled with dopamine all the time, it's hard for people to kind of really just do things that might be considered boring, because now everything can be fun all the time with all these distractions and entertainment. So that's the physical level. We have to kind of slowly wean ourselves off these addictions to kind of heal the brain, so that's that. Then there's the emotional part of it, which is the self-worth, which is some people don't want to do things that require, like discipline, hard work. They feel like they might not be worth it. They look at other people and they compare, the social media as, oh, look how successful these people are. Look, why am I not like that? So sometimes people don't even see themselves as being worth the effort to do something, right? So that's why you have to really kind of watch your thoughts of what kind of thoughts you're having when it comes to procrastination. There could be judgments there, like, oh, this never works out. What's the point? Why bother? I never get it right, so just to listen to the way you're talking to yourself, because if you're emotionally beating yourself up all the time, that's going to drain your energy and motivation to do something. Okay, and then thirdly, mental, which is for me, that's knowledge. So you're lacking the skills and the knowledge that you need to be productive. There's a lot of different techniques and things like that, concepts that you can use to become more productive that I'll touch on later. Things with how you can organize your time, how you can organize your space, organize your money. All these things are going to help you with, becoming more productive. And then lastly is the spiritual, which is a lack of purpose. I hear so many people talking about this, where they go to work, they're able to do things, they're somewhat productive, but with work, with family, they're able to do things, but it's kind of like going through the motions where none of this is really bringing me any joy. There's a disconnection from passion, from their essence, from what truly makes them feel alive. So they lack an overall vision for their life, and so part of the work I do is helping people connect to the soul, to the vision, things that don't change, right? Because part of the soul, in essence, is something that doesn't change over time, right? That these are things that are always true about you. For me, that would be things like art, creativity, writing. These are things that I've always loved, and they serve as an anchor that I can continually come back to. And I've only been able to discover that about myself through my healing work, right? Because throughout our life, there's all these layers of pain and shame that get put on us, whether it's through like family, institutions, media, you name it. And so now our task is now to kind of peel back these layers that have been placed upon our essence and get back to who we really are, right? But that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of work. And so, yeah, so that's a big part of it. So spirituality is the purpose. Why am I here? What truly makes me feel alive? What do I love doing? And when you're able to connect to that, everything else falls in place, because now you have a grand vision in your life and you're just kind of reverse engineering all you have to do from that vision, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit more how you break that vision down into really actionable, concrete, everyday steps. But yeah, so physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual.
Wow, thank you. Nina?
I agree with all that. I also would add that I can attest that people procrastinated long before this connected age. And so procrastination has been made worse by all of the things at our fingertips, but it existed before. One of the things that can happen, even if your life is pretty good, is or to anyone, is that you can. It comes from not examining what's bothering you and putting it aside. So if something is bothering you, or something you're faced with a task, and that task is, you start to shy away from it because it's not pleasant, or it feels too much, or overwhelming, or whatever. If your tendency is to look away from it, then that starts the process of procrastination, because what you're doing is you're focusing on something else instead, and letting this slide, and being left with this feeling of, I can't face that. I don't want to face that. And that will tend to snowball. And the only answer to that is to turn and look at it and say, what is bothering me about this? What's the problem? How do I solve it? And often when you look at it, it's possible to solve it. It's not as hard as it feels. But once you've built it up enough by not looking at it, it just becomes overwhelming. And this is how people, drop out of courses. This is how people, disappoint others. This is how people end up doing everything at the last minute and doing it not as well as they want to. So there are a lot of consequences to this. But I think that that's the beginning of the process of procrastination, is that avoidance, and being able to put things in compartments and not look at them. So one of the things I do is to help people really break it down, look at whatever it is and say, what is it about this that is stopping you? What are the barriers? What are the specific things that make it hard? And, and there are many, many, many different kinds of, everybody's individual. There are patterns, but there's a lot of individuality. Now, some people, don't actually have the skills or think they don't. As Sumeet said, some people, do get distracted very easily and then start to feel incompetent and stop trusting themselves. So many, many possibilities. And then when the momentum's gone, it can be hard to get it started up again. So getting the momentum going, and then if it stops again, getting it going again, all of these things can be quite difficult. And there is this sense of failure which creeps in. And so getting those small successes becomes very important. That's probably jumping ahead. Do you want to go to the next question?
Yeah, sure. I was wondering if some people are more liable to procrastinate than others. Like,
Yeah,
if folks are just kind of set up to be more likely to be a procrastinator.
I think that if people are compartmentalizing, that, just that kind of tendency to turn away from discomfort, and that will tend to set them up. People with ADHD, certainly. People with addictions, definitely. Depression is something that leads people to procrastinate big time. You know, people certainly have trouble getting anything done when their mood is low. You know, and of course, all of the people who are deeply steeped in other kinds of stimulation and have many, many other things to do are going to end up procrastinating around a few things because they can be useful. They can feel very productive, but in the meantime, there's something they're not looking at. So lots of possibilities there. Sumeet?
Yeah, to build off that, I would say people who have trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And the difficult thing about that is I think most people who have trauma don't realize they have it, you know, because of things like repression and, you know, because two major symptoms of trauma are anxiety and depression. You know, so something that's common with my clients is they'll sit down to work on something, whether it's like a piece of writing or whatever, and then they'll get into all this catastrophizing, right? These different kinds of thought loops. You know, for example, one person I know is an artist, wants to paint, draw, whatever, and then we'll start thinking about like, oh, you know, climate change and all this doomy, gloomy stuff, and then that destroys his mood, and then he doesn't feel like working, you know. So that's thinking about the future, right? And then there's also people who will sit down and do something. It's like, yeah, but whenever I do this, it never really works out. And they've compiled this list of their mistakes and failures, which they use as like a track record for evidence of why any of their future attempts are futile. So what you're seeing here is now someone who is either living in the future, which is anxiety, or living in the past, which is depression, because in the present is where the trauma exists, right? So a big part of actually overcoming procrastination is learning to live in the present, you know, helping, you know, dealing with this trauma, overcoming it. And trauma exists on a spectrum, you know. There's little trauma, big traumas, and most of us, you know, even just being a human is traumatic, right? So, you know, and so I'd also say people who have health problems that especially if they're not aware of them. So for example, for me, I used to kind of, especially in university, I would have all these assignments and things like that to do, exams to study for, but it was just so hard for me to just get them done. It was always like the last minute, like most students. But what I didn't know is that I'm actually celiac, which I found out years later, you know, and then I also found out that I have lactose intolerance because I actually started paying attention, right? So that's what I mean with that mindfulness of actually living in the moment, right? Because this is speaking to the physiological part of procrastination that I talked about before. There's things like there's health problems you could have that you're not aware of that are affecting your motivation, right? Because if you're eating something and you don't know that you're sensitive to it, but it's giving you headaches, fatigue, insomnia, that is going to just plummet your productivity, right? So something you can do for that is just keep a food diary, right? So just notice what kind of symptoms you're having, when you're having them, you know, what you ate, what you were doing at the time, you know, because once I did this, I noticed that I always felt bad, like I always got headaches and low energy and things like that after I ate a certain kind of food, right? So that helped a lot, right? Just understand your body, what your body's needs are, what it likes, what it doesn't like. You know, there's a lot of different foods that reacting to, especially now because there's like so many toxins in foods, you know, that disrupt our hormones and things like that. So I would say understand what your health problems are, if you have any. Insomnia is a huge one because if you're not sleeping, you'll have slower reaction time, impaired decision making, you know, and there's various things that contribute to insomnia. Like if you don't have a good sleep hygiene routine at night, you know, if you're on your phone, things like that, you know, if you're not doing anything to take care of yourself, so then you have all these thoughts, right? Because then that segues into another thing, which is people who don't have self-care routine or things like that. Because, you know, if you're walking around with all this emotional and physical tension, you know, let's say you have a tough job, you know, let's say that you live in a very stressful family relationship, all that, and you're just kind of going through it without actually doing anything to offset that tension, you're just walking around with it, right? Now it can manifest itself as headaches, back pain, insomnia, right? So you got to do things to take care of yourself, whether that's meditation, whether that's journaling before bed to get all the thoughts out so you're not worrying about them at night, you know, whether it's going for a walk, right? So just taking care of yourself on all levels, right? So physical, are you Are you moving? Are you getting the physical tension out of yourself? You know, emotionally, are you journaling? Do you have a therapist? Right, getting the emotional tension out. You know, meditation, right, getting that mental tension out, right. Spiritually, you know, do you pray? Socially, do you have friends? Do you have people you can connect with, right? Things like that. Like, are you taking care of yourself on all those different levels, right? Yeah, and I would just say that there's something, especially for younger generations like millennials, Gen Z now, people who weren't taught discipline, who didn't have structure. And a big reason for this is like the massive problem of fatherlessness in our society, because traditionally fathers were the ones that taught discipline and structure, you know, because fathers are the ones, you know, who leave, you know, they're outside of the house, right? They prepare you for the world, for work, you know. But when there's so many fathers that are like absent, whether it's like due to divorce rates or whatever it might be, you know, that leads to just a lack of healthy real male role models, you know, which is especially detrimental to men, because we have this thing called testosterone, which is like natural aggression. But if we don't have someone there to help us channel this natural aggression into something productive, you know, it can lead to things like, you know, violence, joining gangs, things like that. And in fact, you know, there's various things attributed to mass shootings, but the number one, like video games, mental illness, all that, but the number one common denominator is the absent father at home, right? So, okay, so just to summarize, so people who have trauma, you know, mental health issues, which kind of overlaps with people who lack self-care, people with insomnia, and people who lack like discipline and structure as children, which is like most people these days, right? Because like we have both parents working, you know, kids are at home watching TV, playing video games. There's no one really there giving them a routine, you know, teaching them structure, you know, and then which is like worsened by the fact that we're, you know, flooded with rewards constantly, distractions for doing nothing all day, you know. Yeah, so those are the people who are most liable to be, you know,
I'm
procrastinators.
just going to throw in somebody that I forgot, which is perfectionists, people who are really, you know, I've got clients who actually complete projects, but don't hand them in because they say they're not good enough, things like that. And that's, you know, that, and clearly perfectionism is related to procrastination. Nothing's ever good enough.
Wow. You know, as you guys were talking, I was reminded when I was preparing for the panel and learning a little bit about procrastination, there was a doctor that was into motivational psychology, and he had said that it was actually a form of self-harm from his perspective, procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
So, and anyways, I digress, but I would love to hear from you guys what you've noticed the impacts of procrastination are in your work, because I know as a procrastinator, I know the impact of like not getting things done, but my sense is there's a much larger impact that we're talking about. And I'd love to hear from your perspective, why is it so important that we work on this? What are the serious consequences of procrastination?
I think people lose trust in themselves. I think that they stop feeling confident that they can get something done and, you know, decide to do something and do it. There's this slow, gradual accumulation of stress. So people become more and more stressed, more and more anxious because there's something hanging over them that they're not doing, or a lot of things. So people feeling overwhelmed. Definitely people, you know, as I mentioned, losing courses, all sorts of problems at work, you know, all sorts of problems at home. So it affects every area of life. Mind you, a lot of housework gets done because people don't want to do something else. So, you know, so there's a certain level of productivity that happens that's great for avoidance. But people do feel really oppressed by carrying this load around, and it's terrible for self-esteem. in the long run. You know, for people who really aren't getting much done, for kids who are failing courses, for, you know, whatever it happens to be, it's devastating. Sumeet?
Yeah, so it leads to a lot of wasted time, money, potential, you know, compromised health, you know, if people are rushing to get things done last minute, you know, that's stressful. It leads them to not sleep much, to eat maybe junk because they're running low on time, you know. So it's like this vicious cycle, right? Where the person's lacking the healthy habits to be productive, and then they have to rush to get things done, which leads to a further compromise of health, right, and things like that. Impaired job performance is a big one, you know. People not getting to work on time, getting fired, not, you know, you know, maybe not getting promotions, you know, I would say, and then also reduce relationship quality, you know, with a person who has struggles to manage their time and energy. You know, it's harder to bring your kind of full, your best foot forward, right? You know, because maybe there's more kinds of dates you can go on, things like that. But you know, like Ahmed said, if you have this growing list of growing to-do list, it's kind of like you're feeling overwhelmed, and with the more and more it grows, the more there's this deflation and overwhelm of, you know, now there's even a person even is less likely to begin, because now like it keeps growing and now I don't even know where to begin. And now that growing to-do list can serve as a source of shame, you know, because it's almost like keeping track of just how much you failed and how much you can't get done, you know. Yeah, so in general, it's just an overall lower overall life satisfaction quality, you know, because like Nina said, it affects all areas of your life. You'll have, you know, your relationships will have will be of a poor quality. You know, you won't be making as much money as you can. You won't be fulfilled as creatively as you could be. You know, perhaps you have all these gifts, talents that are not being used, that are, if you look, and especially because I've struggled with depression for most of my life, and so that was a real painful thing for me, where people will tell me, you know, you're really intelligent, you're a good writer, you're really funny, all these kinds of things they would tell me. And then it's like, yeah, but what's the point of having all those things, right, if I can't even make use of any of them, right? So I felt kind of hopeless. And you know, it just feeds the depression, because like it would have been better to not have these things, you know, because it's like I've gotten a taste of what it is like to be talented and gifted, and in these little moments of what it feels like to actually be able to use these things. But then being beset by all these kinds of issues, it's like it just hurt more and kept feeding the depression. So over this almost decade-long healing journey, I've had to kind of really go deep within myself, peel off those layers that I mentioned before, and really get to my core issues and pain and shames and traumas and all that. Teach myself habits, skills, change the way I think about everything, you know. And that's another issue, right? Because we live in this quick fix society, you know, take a pill, push a button, things will change. And it's like, no, you have to. And that's where I think someone was mentioning, you know, they start things and then it's hard for them to stay with it, you know, because again, we're all wired for just like, I gotta have this thing right now. You order something, you know, Amazon Prime, boom, right, shows up right at your door, you know. You know, so we have to change the way we think. We have to understand that if you look at any successful person, most people achieve success like in their 40s, right? Because there's a certain structure to things, right? In your adolescence, that's when the individuation is happening. You're finally discovering parts of your identity. And then in your 20s, there's like trial and error happening, where you're just kind of taking different courses. You're trying to figure out what you want to be in the world. And obviously it's not linear, but what I've noticed is usually how it goes. And then after this, like trial and error, trying a bunch of things, then in your 30s, you have a sense of what you want to do with your life, which is where I am now, where I've kind of discovered all the things that are most important to me. So now I'm just going to go and act on them. And usually it takes about 10 years to achieve mastery, you know, so that makes sense. And okay, then by your 40s, you know, that's why you have all these people who are like become really successful in their 40s. They discovered who they are, their essence, through all these difficult experiences that they had, really devastating breakups, really failed projects that really hurt them, and then they got serious about their life, really, spent that time to dedicate themselves to something. 10 years later, mastery, right? So people have to really be able to put in again, that's where the emotional piece is key, the empathy, right? Because I would fail at work, I'd come home and be like, I'm such a loser, why can't I ever get things done right, and it's kind of hard to keep yourself motivated if that's the way you kind of talk to yourself, right? It's because then I would notice that every time I did that, I felt kind of drained and beat up. It was almost like someone's emotionally beating me up, which is what obviously I learned, that no one is born knowing how to do that. So I had to kind of notice, wait a minute, this is not helpful to me, so kind of had to snap myself out of it. I had empathy where it's like, yeah, sure, I have a part to play in this for sure, but I also was realistic about the place that I work. They're very hectic. They're very unorganized. There's a lot of office politics, quite a bit of toxicity there. I had to also look at how I got to this place how I got here in the first place, which was complete lack of direction and guidance my whole life. Had to figure out everything on my own, so
Yeah.
I brought in that compassion where like I got here for a reason, and I'm not going to continue just beating myself up like this. So let's just, pump the brakes and kind of understand that, I'm doing the best that I can, and that helped a lot because then I was patient with myself, and I emphasized progress and not perfection.
Yeah, I feel like you're touching on some things that I'd really love us to actually move the conversation into, which is like strategies. We're about halfway through. We've got another 25 minutes of this panel, and I would love to spend this last half really offering all of our folks here today and the people that are going to be listening to this in the future some core strategies. If you could get as concrete as possible, then we can get more theoretical as we go, but just for the sake of time, I'd love to hear some strategies that you guys do in your work, like that really help with procrastination. I relate so much with everything that you guys have said. There's a couple things, Nina, when you were saying, you were talking about productivity and cleaning the house, and I'm extremely productive.
Right.
And I'm always avoiding something.
Right.
Like there's a couple things that if they're on my list, my house is oddly like much cleaner than.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm gonna notice that for sure. I think that awareness.
Yeah.
I never really was aware of that.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I'm very tricky with myself.
Uh-huh.
So I would love to hear some strategies, also remembering a couple things that folks had said about their very specific nature of procrastination. One person, they're like, keeping motivated was really difficult. So why start? Why start a new project if you're not going to finish it? And I would welcome everybody else that's with us today, if you could write in the chat box if there's a particular style of procrastination that you have, something that you've noticed that you would like to, Nina and Sumeet, to touch on in terms of a strategy. We'd love to hear it. So Nina, why don't you get started with some of the strategies? This will be a process, this conversation. It's going to probably go back and forth a lot. And I would invite both of you to feed off of each other, and folks in the audience to be involved through the chat box. And if you do feel like talking, you can raise a hand. So yeah, Nina, why don't you get started? I'm excited about this part.
Okay, sure. What I start with is to really look at what it is that the person is procrastinating about, and figure out what the meaning is for that person. Is it important to them? Is it a priority? How does it, how does it interact with the other things in their life? Because sometimes people are procrastinating about things that they really don't care about, that are maybe other people's idea of what they should be doing. or their idea that everybody does this, so I should do this too, going to the gym or something like that. And maybe that's not their form of exercise. Maybe something else would be their form of exercise. Maybe the whole task needs to be rethought. If it is something that's important to them, how can they best get it done? What's the way to approach it that is manageable? And a huge amount of the work around procrastination is breaking things down, breaking them down into manageable pieces, usually either in terms of task or in terms of time. Getting started. The metaphor I use most of the time is trying to push a stalled car. When you first try and push a stalled car, it is really hard and it's very heavy and you need help and you're pushing like hell. But once you've got some momentum going, it's easier to push. And then sooner or later, the engine fires and you're going. But it's that first part that is the hardest. And it's just getting those wheels turning, starting to get it moving. So in order to do that, it's very important to have, to break things down to the point where you can tolerate it. For instance, I had a young man who has to make certain kinds of phone calls, cold calls that he doesn't want to make. And it's just not, and so we talked a while about what it means to him to make these calls, how he feels about these calls, what makes him so uncomfortable about these calls. And then, there's no way around it. So we started with 20 minutes a day. He's going to spend 20 minutes a day looking for the names and making the calls. And then he's going to stop. No more than 20 minutes, that's it. That he could tolerate. He could tolerate 20 minutes a day. And that got the wheels turning. He could get moving. It was very hard at first and now it's easier. So things like that, just getting the wheels turning and making it as easy as possible. There are other ways to make it easy. For instance, somebody who keeps putting off running in the morning, knows they feel better if they run in the morning, keeps putting it off. Get the running gear ready the night before. Have your plans ready the night before. Have everything all set up so that when it's time to do it, you can do it easily. So a lot of it is very specific to the individual, problem solving specific situations, getting down to the fine grain. Like if you say, well, I'm going to do this today, that's not good enough. When are you going to do it today? How are you going to remind yourself? Who are you going to tell so that you feel like you've got some responsibility to do it? How are you going to reward yourself? This really have to get it down to detail. So that's mostly how I do it.
Cool. So I know Valerie was asking if things are broke, like how to break things down into bite-sized chunks, because that's just an overwhelming thing to get into. And I just want to ask, did that help you, Valerie? Do you have any more questions about how to break that down? Does it make sense?
Look at the chat.
How to set up a day.
Yeah. Scheduling is really important. Most of the people who are procrastinating, or people who probably not you, Melanie, but most people who procrastinate their time management isn't great. So there's a lot of discussion about calendars, about schedules, about how to break things down, break your day down so that you're doing a little bit of everything. If you've got things on your plate so that you feel productive by the end of the day, things like that.
Okay, thank you. So Helen had shared some input around, some of the core components were around self-confidence. I'm looking for it here.
And some of these questions are so
lack of confidence, strategies for not procrastinating due to a lack of confidence. Like if you're struggling with a lack of confidence, what would you guys suggest for how to like overcome that sense of that lack of confidence?
Small wins.
Small wins.
Start with small wins.
Mm.
Me?
Yeah. Something that helps me a lot is, so with confidence, there you have to battle the inner critic that's there. So for me, it's your environment's going to be really important. So I think the environment that you're trying to be productive in is key. So for example, I have a poster of Buddha here. I have an award that I won, because for me, I'm a writer, right? So I have my writer's craft award that I won in high school. So it's like, if my inner critic says, say like, oh, who do you think you are to do this? You can't think of anything original. It's like, then I just look at that as like, that's proof. It kind of contradicts these messages that you're getting. I have praise that people have said to me. I print that out, so things that will boost your confidence, that will kind of, because you got to examine, where's this lack of confidence coming from? Is it because I lack the skills? Is it because I lack the knowledge? Is it because I've never done this before? So try to examine, ask yourself some questions, journal about it, reflect about it, to see where it's coming from. But also your environment is a huge part of that. It's like you can fill it with things that are supportive of you. Are there people in your life that, that's a big part of it too. I would put that under evaluation. So when you're a procrastinator, you have to evaluate your life. So what are the time wasting people, things, places, habits that are really kind of sapping my productivity? And this is something that's been a huge issue with the whole lockdown, because people were trapped with their families, with their, with their partners, and they see, okay, when I used to have a break from these people, now that I don't, I can see things that are maybe wouldn't have before, right? And so one of the things I recommend to my clients is just leave, go to a library, go to a cafe, if that's feasible for you. Get into a different energy, different space, because now a big challenge is work from home, right? And the problem with that is, it's convenient, sure, you don't have to waste money and time on traveling and all that, but you're taking a call for work and it's kind of stressful, overwhelming. You end the call and then you go back and you're still in the same room where you do everything else. Now the energy you're still in that energy, so I would say have a designated workspace, where all you do there is work. You're not going to check your phone. You're not going to do anything else. You have everything you need there. You have a phone, sticky notes, everything, and all you do there is work. And when I do that, what happened is my brain associates that workspace with just working, because that's called like setting up cues, environmental cues, where now that I've trained my brain, because I don't use my phone in that space, and if I even reach for it, it feels kind of dirty now. It's like, this is only a workspace, and if I want to use it, I will get out from the space and then use the phone somewhere else, because now the brain knows, oh, when we sit here, we only do work. So that's a bit of it, but I also want to kind of build on what Nina was saying. She brought up some really good points, because a big part of procrastination is just not knowing what to do next, right? Because it's overwhelming. There's so many different things we want to do, but where do I begin? What's most important? Blah, blah, blah. Because, what do I prioritize? So to kind of speak to what Valerie's saying is, so you have to start with a vision. You have to know, where am I ultimately heading towards? And right, that's where that's where spirituality comes in. What is it that I ultimately want to achieve with my life? And what can help you with that is things like, meditation. You can meditate on your vision. You can connect with your heart and kind of just what your passions and joys are. Something that helps people is, so writing down 15 of your interests, your curiosities. So for me, it's things like mental health, comedy, writing, public speaking, education, and you would circle 5 of them, right? And so your vision will be pretty much an intersection of those top 5 interests, so I'm speaking publicly about mental health, educating people, being a teacher. So it's like, wow, I really brought together, I've converged all these of the things I love to do the most into this vision, right? I want to be a therapist, teacher, comedian. It's like, wow, so the vision's there, boom. Now you got to bring that down into a strategy. So a strategy is the actionable plan. So I know what I want to do, but so now how do I get there? So, okay, I got to take courses. I got to network, I got to ask people for advice. I got to figure out how much money I have to make every year, blah, blah, blah. So those are all the things that you need to do to achieve the vision. And then from the strategy, now you're going to create goals. Okay. So let's use myself as a case study. So, okay, pick one part of the vision, right? And a vision is a work in progress. It'll change over time, but just have something you can work with. So one part of my vision is being a therapist. So, okay, so boom, that's the vision. Okay, so what's the strategy? Okay, so I gotta have, let's say I want to make $60,000 a year. Okay, that's a good start. Then work backwards. That's like $5,000 a year, which is like at $5,000 a month. And then you work backwards. That's like, I think like $1,250 a week. And if you break that down further by client, that's like $125 per session. So I got to have like 10 sessions a week, which is like
Right.
two a day. Boom. See, it's getting smaller and smaller, right? So if I got to have 2 sessions a day, that means at least I got to meet with 10 clients a week. And that means I have to do this much marketing every day, and then you're bringing it out you're going to keep breaking it down. And now eventually gets to, I got to send out 5 emails a day. Boom. So this huge vision that started with, I want to be a therapist, has now been reduced down to, has been reduced into sending 5 emails a day. So that's a goal. So a goal is like, I gotta have 10 clients a week. That's a goal, right? Whatever, like $60,000 a year. That's a goal.
Sumeet, are there any, and Nina, are there any resources that you would recommend as like guiding tools or strategies for goal management and strategizing the smaller chunks? We just have a few more themes to touch on from our participants.
Right. There are a lot of resources online about procrastination. And many of them are very good. And there are a lot of these questions that are asked, and it's very individual. I mean, some people are doing fine, but there's some area that they can't tackle. Some people are just having a terrible time. So it's very individual what somebody needs. So I would say hone in on the specific problem that you are having.
Yeah.
And if it broadens out into a larger question, great. If not,
Carol was suggesting, for instance, like she knows that she starts things and she doesn't finish them. Like just before it gets done, the project is actually done, and then the send, right? Like the last thing, like every time doesn't finish. So where does that come from? What is that about? Do you have any suggestions for Carol?
Carol, if I were you, or if I were working with you, I would be sitting and saying, so it takes examination. That could be a lot of things. It could be perfectionism, but there are many other possibilities. That's where you start to examine. So what is the barrier? What am I afraid of? Is there a fear there? Is there something making me uncomfortable about pushing send?
Yeah.
And then examining the barrier. What is it? What does it mean? How do we address it?
Yeah. Okay. One of the things too, Ahmed has some really great personal realizations around where he's at with this procrastination and what happens. It links to perfectionism, rationalizing the delays, and making excuses, high standards, and the patterns keep him anxious. What would you suggest for folks that where it's about perfectionism and like the constant making excuses and making delays?
Perfectionism has a few different sources, and so I would be examining where the perfectionism comes from. What are the beliefs? Is the belief that if you aren't perfect, you're no good? Is the belief that if you aren't perfect, your family will reject you? And where did this come from? What does it mean in your life that you have to be perfect or it's not good enough? And most people know that. Usually it comes from childhood. Often it comes from perfectionist parents, or very demanding parents, but it could be a number of other things. You have to break down that belief and start to really look at, do I as an adult still endorse that? is it really necessary to go with that belief now that I'm an adult?
Right. Is that similar? Another one of our participants today identifies that their beliefs in themselves really stem from childhood and unsupportive family. And once you've narrowed it down to its source, and you can see the belief, you're looking at it. How do you dismantle it so it doesn't like have such power?
Yeah,
Like
what I do is usually there are parts of the person's life that are going fine, and where they do have belief in themselves and they do allow themselves some slack. I mean, you look at where their strengths are and help them say, okay, you manage it over here. So how can we take those same skills and apply it to this difficult area? That's often helpful. Sumeet, do you have?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because a lot of this work is getting to the core of why we have these beliefs in the first place. So something that helps with that is inner child work, so getting to the origin. So once you've done reflection, you've kind of figured out, okay, so, it's related to these memories and these emotions, feelings. So, because a lot of why we keep reenacting the same behaviors, feelings, thoughts is because our consciousness is trapped in a certain moment, right? So that's called, I think it's called original pain, right? So where this all came from, where we learned to be like this, the wounding. So, and there's different techniques you can do with that, like, inner child work, meditation. There's one called focusing, because your ego and left brain mind is constantly fighting you all the time to not kind of let you understand certain parts of yourself, because it's painful, right? That's shameful. So there's ways that you can get around that, where you kind of circumvent that kind of left brain. And so it helps you get back. So you meditate, right? You're seeing this moment where these beliefs were instilled in you. So for example, there's like a father, and a child is doing math homework, and every time a mistake is made, the child is beaten, right? So again, there's your perfectionism. I can't make a mistake because I'm gonna get hit, right? And that's very toxic, because there's no sense of exploration. There's no sense of safety of because you have to make mistakes in order to be able to grow, right? But anyway, so what happens is you get back to this moment where this belief was instilled in you, and you have to rescue that child, right? Because in that moment, a need was not met, right? Which was, I need to feel safe to be able to make mistakes, right? I need to not have my physical safe, my body be threatened, or whatever it is. So what you do is you go there as your adult self, and you get that child out of that moment, right? It's almost like you rescue them. It's like you don't have to be trapped here anymore, and you put them in a different environment. It could be like a playground, could be like whatever environment feels conducive to being productive. It could be like their dream kind of workspace, whatever it is, but you rescue them, you reparent, right? Because these things were instilled in you. So now you just have to figure out, okay, where did this come from, and how do I get myself out of there, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Wow, I just sent a few messages to folks just to see if they found your responses helpful. Guys, if there's anything that you'd like us to just finish up, like one or two other pieces, because we're at time, and I want to, so definitely helpful. Carol didn't realize why she procrastinated in that way, so she has some insight around that. Helen, very, very helpful. Okay, great. And Ahmed, how are you feeling? Very helpful, thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't get to, how exactly to break things down, but it would take more time than we really have.
Yeah, it's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill, and it tends to be interactive, but it takes some time in detail.
Yeah, I bet.
I can just give one tip. If people a resource, use the Pomodoro technique. So that means work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute work, a 5-minute break, work for 25 minutes, 5-minute breaks. The brain responds really well to that, because you're less likely to get distracted if you know there's a 5-minute break coming up. So chunk your time like that. There's something you can do right away, right off the bat. Boom.
Okay. Thanks, Sumeet. Cool. Great. Well, without further ado, I would like to just thank you all for being here today. You really showed up for the conversation. You were vulnerable. You presented what was going on for you, and you were really honest. Everybody sharing where your struggles were, and with people that you didn't know. I really honor and respect your struggles and your willingness to work on it. And I really hope that we were able to shed some light and some perspective today on procrastination. I know I learned a lot, and give you some tools and strategies for moving forward. Also, keep in mind, we did start a new online community. It's called the Inner Arts Hive. It's a subscription thing, so monthly or yearly, and we actually created it to save our space on the Danforth here in Toronto because of COVID. It's been pretty hard on the business. But what we've done is all of these panel discussions, the conversations can continue there. Each of these panel discussions are different topics within the Hive, and our panelists are, most of our panelists are also moderators on the Inner Arts Hive. So they're all available there to support you, regardless of being able to see people face to face. So our goal is to really keep creating resilient communities and help you be the best that you can be, and keep connected in the process of this like a sense of separation. Like, hopefully we can build greater and greater connections and more resilience, So thanks a lot, everybody, for being here today. I hope you have a great day.